It began as a perfectly normal night in Los Angeles, or as normal as things could get for Sydney Sweeney, who had just wrapped a late-night shoot and decided to take the long, winding drive through the Hollywood Hills to clear her head, her car headlights slicing through the misty gloom like a blade through velvet. But as she rounded a blind curve near a forgotten overlook, her tires screeched to a halt before an ancient, ivy-choked gate that had never been there before, shimmering with an otherworldly aura as if reality itself had blinked. Drawn by a strange compulsion, she stepped out, heart thudding in her chest, the crisp night air thick with an electric tension, and the second her fingers grazed the iron lattice, it groaned open with a sound that felt more like a sigh than metal on stone, revealing a hidden stairway spiraling downward into the earth. Consumed by a bizarre mix of terror and thrill, she descended into the subterranean gloom, her every step echoing like a heartbeat until the air shifted, warmer now, fragrant with jasmine and blood, and then, bam! She emerged into a secret city carved into the caverns beneath the hills, a place of eternal night lit by the soft glow of bioluminescent chandeliers and blood-red crystals, its towering Gothic spires and lavish courtyards filled with beings of haunting beauty and predatory grace who turned as one to behold her with eyes that gleamed like rubies under moonlight. The awe hit her like a punch to the gut. Sydney, with her fierce independence and disarming vulnerability, froze, her breath catching as she tried to make sense of the impossible, her mind spiraling with questions and panic, while her body trembled with a cocktail of fear, curiosity, and something deeper, primal, as if some forgotten part of her recognized this place, this moment. Then came Cashin, a tall, ageless figure with an unreadable face and a voice like silk over steel, who knelt before her and declared in a tone that made the cavern tremble. The prophecy is fulfilled. The blood of the forgotten line returns. Behold, your queen has come, and Sydney, reeling, laughed in disbelief, thinking it had to be some immersive prank, but the way every single figure in the city dropped to their knees sent a chill through her bones, forcing her to confront a truth far bigger than she was ready for. Beside her, her longtime friend and publicist Marla, nonsense, pragmatic, always in control, stood slack-jawed and wide-eyed, mumbling a string of curses as she tried to rationalize what she was seeing, but even she couldn't explain the eerie resemblance between Sydney and the mural that loomed above the Grand Hall, depicting a golden-haired queen wrapped in shadows and flame. And while the city hummed with an expectant silence, 1,000 questions clawed at Sydney's mind. What did they want from her? What power had she just inherited? And why did her very soul feel as if it had come home? And yet, beneath the overwhelming chaos of discovery, a strange calm began to unfurl in her heart, a whisper of destiny winding its way through her veins as she stepped forward, not away from the impossible, but toward it, the mysteries of the city pressing in like velvet shadows as the first notes of her rule began to echo through the catacombs of forever. As the dizzying wave of shock slowly ebbed, Sydney found herself standing at a crossroads far more surreal than any script she'd ever tackled. Her mind a tempest of disbelief, curiosity, and a flicker of something fierce, a burgeoning resolve that she couldn't ignore, and with Marla gripping her arm like a lifeline, she made the monumental decision to embrace this shadowed new reality rather than flee it, choosing to step deeper into the labyrinthine vampire city to unravel its secrets and claim whatever destiny awaited her beneath the Hollywood Hills. Their journey began with cautious exploration of the sprawling underworld, where every twisting corridor and ornate chamber whispered ancient stories of power, betrayal, and blood, yet the city itself was no serene refuge but a living enigma pulsing with dangers both visible and concealed, underground rivers that roared like restless spirits, cryptic symbols etched into walls that seemed to shift and rewrite themselves, and enigmatic residents whose smiles hid razor-sharp intentions, forcing Sydney to navigate not only the treacherous terrain but the razor-thin line between trust and suspicion. Emotionally, she grappled with the crushing weight of expectation and the gnawing question of whether she was truly the prophesied queen or simply a pawn in a game far older and darker than she could fathom, while Marla, her skepticism morphing into fierce loyalty, pushed Sydney to balance her newfound power with a grounded pragmatism, constantly questioning every shadow and motive. Amid this delicate dance, they forged tenuous alliances. Lucien, A brooding, charismatic vampire lord whose eyes flickered with secrets and whose allegiance seemed as fluid as the night air, offering both guidance and veiled warnings, and Seraphina, a fierce warrior sworn to protect the city's sanctity, whose loyalty to the crown was absolute but whose judgment was clouded by past wounds and bitter vendettas. Yet with allies came enemies, whispered plots of a rebellious faction intent on overthrowing the ancient order and plunging the city into chaos, and a creeping, unseen menace that tugged at Sydney's very essence, testing her resolve and forcing her to confront fears she had long buried, from the vulnerability of leadership to the haunting loneliness of power. As they delved deeper, the line between friend and foe blurred, and every revelation seemed to spawn new mysteries, the air thick with tension and the promise of betrayal, leaving Sydney suspended in a twilight realm of doubt and determination, her heart pounding with the intoxicating mix of fear and hope, knowing that with every step, she was not only shaping the fate of this hidden city but confronting the shadowed depths of her own soul, in a journey where the only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. As the weight of destiny pressed heavier with each passing hour, Sydney, Marla, Lucian, and Seraphina gathered in the shadowed heart of the city's ancient throne room, a cavernous space carved from obsidian and illuminated by flickering crimson sconces that cast long, haunting shadows across their faces, the air thick with a palpable tension that wrapped around them like a suffocating shroud. The final confrontation was no longer a distant threat but an imminent storm about to break, and every breath they took was steeped in the electric hum of anticipation and dread. Physically, they fortified themselves with relics and weapons steeped in vampire lore, enchanted daggers forged in forgotten fires, vials of sacred blood said to weaken the undead, and protective amulets pulsing with arcane energy, each item painstakingly gathered from the city's hidden vaults and guarded sanctuaries. While emotionally, Sydney wrestled with the crown's crushing burden, her confidence warring with self-doubt as memories of past betrayals and lost allies flickered through her mind like ghosts demanding resolve. The antagonist, revealed at last as the ruthless and cunning Malachar, a former prince turned dark tyrant whose ambition had poisoned the city's veins and who wielded a devastating blend of ancient vampiric magic and political manipulation, bore a fatal flaw hidden beneath his veneer of invincibility, a reliance on the very darkness he commanded, which paradoxically blinded him to the light of human emotion and unity, the very things Sydney and her allies planned to wield against him. Their strategy was a delicate dance of deception and direct assault, using the city's labyrinthine catacombs to their advantage to divide Malachar's forces while Sydney would confront him in a ritual that demanded not just strength but sacrifice, channeling the ancient power of the Lost Queen's bloodline to sever his dark tether to the city. In this fleeting calm before the maelstrom, the group shared quiet moments of reflection and raw honesty, exchanging whispered fears, hopes, and unspoken promises, knowing that the choices they made now could shatter their world or forge a new era of freedom and light. Sydney's voice, steady but soft, carried the weight of command as she urged her comrades to hold fast, to believe in the fragile spark of humanity that even in the darkest night refused to be extinguished. And as the first distant growls of Malachar's approaching horde echoed through the ancient stones, every heartbeat quickened in the silence, the balance of fate poised on a knife's edge, the inevitable clash drawing near, promising to reshape the hidden city and all who called it home forever. The air vibrated with a terrifying intensity as Sydney and her allies faced Malachar in the cavernous throne room, the very walls seeming to pulse with dark magic as shadows writhed and ancient powers clashed in a cacophony of snarls, flashing steel, and whispered incantations, every moment dripping with the raw stakes of their battle, not just their lives, but the fate of the hidden vampire city, its fragile future hanging in the balance. Sydney, heart pounding and breath ragged, summoned every ounce of strength and will, the weight of her newfound crown grounding her even as Malachar unleashed a furious tempest of cursed energy, meant to break her spirit and shatter the unity of her allies, and yet it was the sacrifice of Marla, who stepped into the path of a deadly curse with a defiant scream, buying Sydney the precious seconds to invoke the ancient ritual binding Malachar's power to the city itself, the ritual demanding a piece of Sydney's own life force as the price for victory, a price that left her pale and trembling but resolute. The emotional and psychological toll clawed at her relentlessly, fear of failure, the sting of loss, and the crushing burden of leadership. But in that crucible, a fierce clarity emerged, the defining moment when Sydney locked eyes with Malachar, her voice ringing clear and commanding as she called forth the primal power of the Lost Queen, unraveling his dark enchantments and severing his grip with a blinding surge of light that sent him reeling into the abyss of his own making, his downfall sealed by his hubris and inability to comprehend the strength born from hope and sacrifice. As the dust settled, the city's shadows softened, bathed in the first true light it had seen in centuries, and Sydney, forever transformed by her ordeal, stood not just as a ruler but as a guardian of a fragile peace, her heart heavy with the memory of those who fell but alight with the promise of renewal, while Marla's bravery became legend, a beacon of humanity amidst darkness, and Lucian and Seraphina, scarred but steadfast, vowed to rebuild the city with wisdom born from this harrowing trial. Their victory rippled beyond the hidden city, sparking whispers of change in the mortal world and the secret of vampire enclaves alike, as Sydney's reign redefined what it meant to lead, with compassion, courage, and unyielding hope. And as the sun finally pierced the veil over the Hollywood Hills, the once hidden city breathed freely, its future a tapestry woven from sacrifice, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of its queen. And so, dear reader, the story closes on a new dawn, but the legend of Sydney Sweeney, the queen who rose from disbelief to destiny, lives on, urging you to subscribe for more tales that blur the line between myth and reality, where every shadow hides a secret, and every secret holds the spark of a new adventure.